I'm Tiffany Kittle and welcome to Listen Up. Today we'll be talking about parenting. Next, Jillian will speak to Cheryl Wise. Cheryl Wise received her PhD in counseling psychology from Temple University and has spent her life in the Philadelphia area. She has been a therapist for 8 years and is currently working with adults, teens, and children at the Community Health Center in Philadelphia. Dr. Wise will also start seeing private clients in Norristown beginning in June 2007. Some effective approaches to parenting are nurturing your child's self-esteem, catching your child being good, setting limits and being consistent with your discipline, making time for your children, being a good role model, making communication a priority, be flexible and willing to adjust your parenting style, show that your love is unconditional, and be aware of your own needs and limitations as a parent. Maintaining a good sense of friendship while also having rules in place is the best place to be for a parent and child. Some ineffective approaches to parenting are consistently putting your child down when he or she does something wrong, neglecting your child for whatever reason, whether it's being too busy with work or hobbies. You need to make time for your children. If your child has a soccer game or a dance recital, but you are supposed to go out shopping, your children are more important. There are more positive and negative ways to raise your children, but the most important thing is to make them feel safe, loved, and comfortable. And now over to Jillian with Cheryl. Coming up later, we'll have a discussion with some NAHS students about parenting.
Hi, I'm Jill Haypack, and I'm here with Dr. Cheryl Wise, who's a therapist, and today we're going to talk about parenting, some good effective parenting, and some parenting skills. Thank you for being here. First, let's start off by talking about the definition of parenting and what's good parenting, what's bad parenting, and how do you distinguish between the two?
Sure. Well, just in basic terms, parenting is the whole realm of things that the parents do in order to get a child from birth all the way up to where they kick them out of the house at 18 or whenever. So it encompasses everything from loving and caring and providing for all the different needs, as well as helping to develop the child from the point where they're cared for entirely by their parents to the point where they're mostly doing everything on their own and fully functioning independent adults. Okay. So simply good parenting is when there's a good relationship between the parents and the child, and when the child is able to start doing things more and more independently and eventually able to get out and do things on their own. Mm-hmm. Parenting that's not so effective can happen for a whole variety of reasons. Sometimes there's just problems in the relationship between the parents and the child. Sometimes there are problems that the child has just independently, things that they might be born with that make them a little different. And sometimes the parents might have some problems or difficulties in their own lives that make it difficult for them to be effective parents. Usually when I see families that are having trouble with parenting, it can come to my attention because the school has noticed some concerns that they have with the child, or the parents have come in because they're frustrated with what's happening between themselves or the child. Or when it gets, pretty serious, it's because maybe a court has sent the family to talk to someone like me about how to improve strategies and improve what's going on with the child.
Okay. Let's talk about some rules. What are the reasons parents set rules?
Well, the idea behind rules or limits or boundaries is so that kids are given a sense of what's called a limit. Kids are naturally curious and naturally want to go out and do their own thing. And the idea of setting rules by the parent is to protect the child. So for someone who's very young, a very simple rule might be don't go out into the street. Mm-hmm. And then the rules change and develop as the child gets older and more responsible to you need to be home by 10 or you need to be home by 11. The rules are intended to help the parents feel as if their child is as safe as possible, but also to help develop the child's internal ability to set their own rules in order to work towards a goal or something like that. So
gain responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. So that, when they're old enough, they know that if they want to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to work, they're probably going to have to be at home and in bed by a reasonable time to be able to do that.
Do you think there are cases where parents set rules for no reason or set rules because they feel like they just want to have control because they lack control in other aspects of their lives?
Yeah, parenting is a tough job. I mean, I think a lot of times kids don't, obviously it's not their job to recognize that parenting can be hard, but as a parent you deal with being worried about how safe your kids are, being worried about how they're doing, and also sometimes parents are still dealing with how they were raised as kids. So if a parent hasn't had any other learning or education or understanding about how to be a good parent except from what they learned watching their own parents, if it wasn't a great place to grow up, then they will probably have some problems figuring out how to be a good parent. Sometimes parents will set rules, like exactly what you said, because they feel like they want their kids to listen to them because I said so. And that's sort of the typical parent role. And that's difficult because it's hard for the kids to be willing to go along with that after a certain point. But parents haven't figured out another way of feeling like their kids are safe or feeling like their kids are listening to them, so they will often, kind of get even more angry and even more angry in order to try and get their kids to do what they're telling them to do.
Okay.
So yeah, that can create some problems.
Now, what are some good strategies for setting rules and reinforcing the rules that you would set as a parent?
Well, I think one of the most helpful things is to understand as a parent that the rules are designed to help your kid develop. The rules, if the rules are being used because you're angry at your kids, you're probably going down the wrong road. You want to set rules that your kids are going to be able to be successful with. And you also want to set up rules that are going to have consequences that the kid will experience if they aren't able to follow the rules. So to give you a quick example, if there's a rule of you need to be home by 10 o'clock, if there's consequences already set up, you need to be home at 10 o'clock or else you're not going to be able to go out tomorrow night. And then, if the child walks in at 10:45, then the whole plan has already been established. So instead of there being this big angry argument and conflict, the parent is in the position of being able to say, well, I told you needed to be in 10 or else you wouldn't be able to go out tomorrow night. So I'm sorry, but you're not going to be able to go out tomorrow night, but you'll be able to go out the next night. So that way, the disappointment, the kid might feel disappointed, but that's the job of the parent, is to be able to say, I'm sorry you weren't able to succeed with this time. Hopefully you'll be able to do it tomorrow. I don't like to punish you to be mean, but those are the rules and that's what happens.
Okay. Now that we've talked about rules and breaking them, what do you think is appropriate punishments and what's inappropriate?
Well, one of the main things that I think parents don't think about ahead of time is that you need to set up a punishment or a consequence that you can really stick to. And I feel terrible for parents who might say, all right, well, no TV for a year. Well, and then the TV is in the middle of the living room. The rest of the family wants to watch television. So how on earth are you going to, really follow through on that for a whole year? And so what'll usually happen is that the child that was punished eventually will kind of slide out of that punishment. And, basically what the child's learned is that if they just pester enough or bug enough, then they're going to be able to get out of that consequence. And so really what the child has learned is that if they just wait long enough, they can get their mom or their dad to change their mind or do something different. So parents really need to figure out consequences that are important to the child, that are meaningful, and that they can follow through on.
Can you give me some examples of good punishments versus bad punishments besides the TV one?
Sure. A lot of the consequences, again, are about things that are important to your child depending on what age they are. With real small kids, and we're talking like 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, what they want most is to be around their mom or their dad doing exactly what the mom and dad do. So some of the brief punishments that might happen as a consequence for a child that age is really just to be, like if the mom's in the living room doing something, the child's separated from her, maybe behind a sliding gate in the other room. So the child can sort of see that she's separated from her mom for a few minutes as a punishment. So that's sort of a simple example of something for a younger kid. For older children, maybe for teenagers, computers are pretty important, cell phones, obviously TVs for maybe some younger teens, video games, going out with friends. All of those things can, be taken away for a certain amount of time, and then the teenager or the child is asked to sort of earn them back. So, sorry, no TV tonight, or, I'm going to have to take your cell phone away for a week, and you'll get it back at the end of the week. So as long as it's sort of very specific and something that's going to matter, and if you think about how it works in the, kind of adult world and being out in a job, if someone doesn't live up to the requirements of their job, their boss is going to take their money away. Well, yeah, and they'll get in trouble by taking their money away, losing the job in an extreme case. So it's helping your teenager sort of develop that same sense of there's a reaction to the actions that you do.
Do you think it's okay to hit your kids?
Well, I know that's a giant debate. There are some people that believe that it's within the parents' right to hit their kids, and there are some parents that strongly believe that parents shouldn't hit their kids. The way I look at it is that if it worked, I would be more supportive of it, but it really doesn't seem to work very well. It does stop the child's behavior or the teenager's behavior immediately, but instead of helping the child or the teenager learn or figure out how to get what they want, it more creates a situation where they're angry at the parents or they're afraid of the parents in an extreme case. There's also a difference between hitting your children or hitting your teenagers out of a sense of discipline or out of a sense of being angry. And I think that's kind of the best way for a parent to get a handle on what they're doing. If you're hitting your kid out of anger, or if you're hitting your kid and it's causing them pain or leaving a mark or any of those things, then that means you've crossed the line, and it's not about discipline anymore, but it's about your own anger being out of control.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you so much for coming out. This is really an important topic to talk about. And
Sure.
Stay tuned to our Teen Talk portion of Listen Up.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Kittle, and welcome to the teen discussion portion of Listen Up. Today I'm here with my co-host Jillian Haypack and some NAHS students to talk about teen parenting. Jill, you want to start us off today?
Sure. Well, let's talk about parenting in general first. Parenting, like what do you guys think the difference is between good parenting and bad parenting?
I think good parenting would be understanding your child's needs, and bad parenting would just be not caring about your children.
Those are good ideas, like having a good relationship between your child while keeping them safe and making sure they get everything that they need.
Exactly.
Exactly. Do you have any thoughts about parenting?
Yeah, I guess a good parent would know where their kid is. Some don't even know. Like, my mom's gonna call me up saying, "Where are you right now?" Because I always call her and let her know, because she'll get pretty angry at me if I leave her hanging.
Yeah.
Well, good parenting, yeah, being involved in your kids' lives, but then there's too much involved. Bad parenting is either not caring enough or caring way too much and being overprotective and things like that. It could go either way.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think rules are really good. They're really good in like a parenting situation. Like parents always need to set out guidelines for their kids, but sometimes it's just too much. Like, call me whenever you leave this place, or I want to know where you are like every 15 minutes. Like, that's just too much.
Well, earlier we spoke to a therapist who knows a lot about parenting, and she explained to me that rules are meant to keep their kids safe. So rules really are there for your own protection and for your own good, but I know that sometimes it's a little bit too much. Do you think sometimes parents put rules in place to feel like they control you or as a control thing?
Yeah, I think a lot of some parents have control issues, so they'll go above and beyond with rules, and it's just too much. They put so many restrictions on their kids that they become wild, and it's just ruining them.
Yeah, I
instead
agree
of
with that.
bettering them.
A parent could try to be too overprotective, and their child would end up not really being able to experience what a lot of the other kids could. So the first opportunity they get, they would maybe go crazy.
They rebel also.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I have, like, lots of personal experience. Like, I have a lot of rules in my house, and, you know, after so much time of just, like, taking it and taking it and taking it, you can't do it anymore. And you just give up, and You
Yeah,
do stuff you're not supposed to do only because there's been rules there that you just think are completely ridiculous.
Mhm. Can you guys give me some examples of good rules versus bad rules?
Like-
Curfews are sometimes good, like
Yeah.
especially on weeknights. You should be worrying about school,
Mhm.
not going out all night
Yeah.
partying.
That's a good one. What about on the weekends? Do you think curfews are
I think
necessary?
I think it depends on the age of the kid. Like if they're in high school,
Mhm.
if they're a freshman, they shouldn't be out all night because there's some bad stuff out there. But
Plus,
once they
they're still
start,
only like 14 or
Yeah.
15 years old. Like,
it's a trust issue.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, kids, when you're under 18, there's nothing to
Yeah.
do late at night
That's true.
except for get in trouble.
Mhm.
But if you are going to be out really late and you're at a friend's house, which is pretty much the only place you can be, if your
You can
parents
go to the
know,
movies, though. I mean, like,
I
there's
mean,
still
11 something is
And
the
at
Yeah.
the
last.
same
but-
time, when you're that young, that's like your only opportunity to experience the world at a young age and start learning.
Mhm.
I mean, you're right. I agree.
Do you think it's better for parents to let their kids learn the hard way or to try to shelter them and protect them from the bad things in life?
I definitely believe that I learned the hard way. Like, the only way I've ever learned a lesson is by making a mistake and then saying, oh, I shouldn't do that again, you know, that didn't turn out right. But, like, I feel like sometimes when people, like, shelter me and they're like, well, you know, like, there's always that classic example of, like, the little kid who's, like, playing by the stove when, you know, their mom's cooking or something, and mom says, don't touch the stove, you're going to burn yourself. And, you know, they never learn until they touch it and burn themselves.
Gotta get burned, yep. What do you guys think about discipline and punishments after you do break those rules or, you know, for little kids when they do bad things? Do you think there are appropriate punishments versus inappropriate punishments?
I do.
You think there are? Can you
Yeah.
give me some examples?
Little
I got in
babies.
trouble for lying to my parents, and their discipline toward me was almost like I killed the man.
Oh, no.
Oh my God.
I know. So, I mean, every child or every kid will learn based upon their punishments. I mean, if you don't ever punish a kid, he's obviously going to keep doing the same thing. But sometimes when you punish a kid too much, it just gets to the point where it's an annoyance to them, and it doesn't really help at all.
Yeah. Let's go into a big debate. There's a big debate going on all the time about, is it okay to beat your kids? Is it okay to physically hurt your kids when they do something wrong? What do you guys think about that?
I think, like, with little kids, like a little slap on the hand, you know, and they do, like, toddlers, like, when they do something bad, you know, like, touch something they're not supposed to. I mean, like, slapping the hand, that's fine. Maybe, like, a little, like, spank on the butt, that's fine. But, like, when it gets to, like, the point of, like actual, like, abuse, like, actually, like, shoving them or, you know, pushing them, hitting them, slapping them, doing
Close
anything that would
fisting.
actually, like, hurt them, I don't think that's right.
I don't think it should be at any age. From personal experiences, parents should never, ever fight their like teenagers when they're bad or hit their little kids. It's just there's discipline and then there's just too much. There's just crossing the line, like slapping the behind or slapping the mouth when they curse and stuff like that. That's one thing. But when you go to physically harming them or beating them or actually getting in fist fights with them, like that's just
That's bad.
too much.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a certain age with kids that they just stop tolerating it. They just stop
And they
taking
fight
it.
back.
Yeah, and they fight back. And, you know, that's when you get to that point, it's really, you know, it must really suck when you
Yeah.
get to that point. So,
I also believe that it depends on what the kid did wrong and how consistent he or she is with it. Because even though a child might only be able to handle, you know, a certain amount of abuse or anything from their parents, it's the same with the parents. The parents might be only able to withstand so much trouble that their kid's getting into until they eventually lose it. So
There's
that
like
could
a
result in-
limit. There's like a limit though. Like if you're 16, 17 years old and your parents are like hitting you, like,
yeah, you're almost an adult.
yeah, like a
Your
couple
mom
years
punches you in
and
the
you're
face.
legal. Like you're legally an adult, and you know, like that's too much. Like maybe
Well,
like
like I said,
under the age of
it depends.
10.
Yeah, it depends on the age and you know what they did.
I would say like the cutoff age is probably like under 10 for like slapping, spanking your children.
What do you think, you know, when parents get divorced, how do you think that affects kids?
Affects them a lot because they just go back and forth between parents, and I don't know, sometimes parents use the kids as leverage, so that affects them, or sometimes when they get divorced, the one parent you never see, or they get remarried, and it's just a lot of different things.
A lot of drama.
Yeah, I think it's a negative effect too, because like she said, you know, parents might use their kids as a leverage, and in a lot of cases, I've known kids that have said that they don't feel loved almost, because it's always a constant battle between their parents, so they feel like they're not important anymore, because their parents are always fighting about, you know, who's going to get the kids, or who gets the house, the car.
Yeah, it's like, it almost seems like the kids are just another object to fight over.
Exactly.
Just another
And when it's
something.
not that, it's when the worst is when the two parents get remarried and have babies, because then you're the kid that's not loved anymore. Well, not like loved
Well,
anymore, not really thought about as much. They have
Yeah.
new families.
To look at it from another point of view, you got to see that the parents, like, they do care, you know, even though that all this stuff is going on. They do care, and they want you with them. In most cases, they want you with them because they think it's for your best interest, and they want to fight for you because you're important to them. So.
I just know from personal experience that I live with a single mom. My parents got divorced when I was really young, and I never knew my dad. Like, they got divorced when I was probably around like a year and a half old, and either he never tried to find me or never did, but I never knew him. And then, you know, a couple of years ago, there was a tragedy, and he passed away. And like, now I feel like, you know, even though my mom probably did it, like, you know, for the good of both of us, that I never got a chance to know my dad because they split up for whatever reason, and I never got to know him.
Yeah. So, do you guys think that it would have been better if your parents would have stayed together for you, or do you think that it's more important for them to do what they got to do?
From my personal experience, I think it was better for my parents to split up, just for the simple fact that it was just fighting and it was too much, so that was better. But then it sucked at the same time because they left on such bad terms. that,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, thank you again, all of you guys. It's really a good conversation. It's really important to have. So tune in next time for the next Listen Up.